Hello, nice to see you out there. Now, I assume the reason you're stopping by is that you may have heard that I have a new book out, and you might be just a bit curious as to the title of my book. Can you see that? It's all upside down. So, I'd like to talk to you a little bit, share with you some of the motivation for why I wrote the book, and tell you a little bit about what's in it. First, on the motivation. Over the past few years, I have made such drastic changes in how I help teams as a coach that it often appears that what I'm recommending is the complete opposite of many of our well established, long held software engineering principles. Now, in fact, what I recommend is not in opposition at all to these principles, but it appears that way. It can appear that way because what we've learned that actually works in practice, and this is in the recent past, just the last few years, what we've learned uh, often is quite different than what we think based on what we've been taught. This is the motivator for why I wrote the book. I wanted to share true recent stories about what really works with software development teams. In the book, I have 8 stories that I tell. They all occurred in 2015 and 2016. Now, one of the things I do is I tell the stories. I also share what I call 26 upside down principles. Now, in fact, these principles are not upside down, and I explain that in the book. But what is upside down is what many people think they need to do in order to successfully apply those principles. So that's the focus of the book. That's what I'm trying to share. Now, to do this, to help you understand, I focus on 3 things in each story. First, the activities that successful software development teams actually do to implement the principles and some best practices that we share, how much effort they put in to each of those activities, and when they conduct each of those activities. What's interesting about this, and I think you're going to find when you hear this, is what we think and what we are believing from the so-called best practices that many of us are familiar with, where we think most of the activity is occurring, we're going to get a surprise that a lot of successful teams aren't putting their effort there. And more importantly, what you're going to learn are some of the activities where teams end up spending a great deal more of their time than we realize that in the past we haven't really been paying a great deal of attention to. So, in closing, I would like to just say that I'm not the first one to have observed the fact that what works in practice doesn't necessarily match the theory. And in fact, this isn't just true in software development either. As the immortal New York Yankee baseball legend Yogi Berra once said, in theory, there isn't any difference between theory and practice, but in practice, there is. Now, this is the first YouTube that I've done on the book. I'm planning to do a few more. I talk about both principles and best practices in the book, but I focus more on principles. So in my next YouTube and blog, I'm planning to explain a little bit more about why I focus on principles and the power principles can bring to the performance of software development teams. Hey, thanks for giving me a little time and have a great day.